13 Questions by Mantranscending. Manhood in the Digital Age.
This week on 13 Questions, we got friend of the show, RAM FEC, aka Mark. Came in and joined Graham, answered the questions in studio, and has some fantastic answers and a fantastic bonus section as well that I think you'll enjoy. Well worth the price of admission to go and check out RAM FEC's bonus section answers. And not only that, I mean, if you go do that, A, you're going to get the rest of Mark's answers. B, you're going to get the rest of everyone's answers for the last 20 episodes we did. And that, of course, just comes out as a bonus RSS feed. You don't have to deal with two different podcast feeds. You just have to deal with one podcast feed. And it'll be fantastic. And not only that, you get to be a part of the community. And we're trying to build something great here. We're trying to do the open source podcasting thing. We had our last episode was with Stevie and his buddy from across the pond. And that's sort of the centerpiece of what the members get, and we're hoping that'll grow and expand, and you guys will take that opportunity on to start sending in interviews from your fathers and grandfathers and mentors and uncles and brothers and
bosses
and bosses, whoever.
Subjects.
Kids. Ask your kid.
Well,
he should be an adult kid, but you know what I mean. Anyway, that's what we're hoping to do here, and you get some communication courses instantly to help you out with communicating. Maybe you could do a couple courses before you start podcasting. You're a little nervous. Then you do one of the communication courses. Hey, all of a sudden you're feeling up to podcasting. Or halfway there, maybe do 2 courses, then you're ready. Doesn't matter. You could do all 5 courses. They're all free. They all come with the price of admission, and you get to do the podcast with the price of admission too. So it really is a no-brainer. The Discord, and the Discord is kind of an underrated thing. It's sort of slow moving right now, but we're hoping we can get, once we get 20, 30, 40 people in there, it'll really get bumping, and we can get some little side communities going and some little support groups going in there if that's what needs to happen, and all sorts of fun stuff like that. We got Graham, who's experienced in dealing with addiction and stuff like that, and he can always help people out with those sorts of things, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, hoping to utilize that experience that I've had.
There you have it. Sober up experience.
Yeah.
11 years?
Over 11 years, yeah.
Pretty good.
It's flying by. In some ways. In some ways it's long. It's weird.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So RAM FEC.
RAM FEC?
RAM FEC?
RAM. He's the author of 2 books on individuation covering the metaphor and the mechanics, respectively. He's a music producer and a multi-instrumentalist whose debut album will be released in fall 2019. He's a founding member of the Visceral Music Film Ideas, so the Visceral MFI. It's a collective of supporting consciousness and awareness through intentional and mindful art projects. RAM FEC was invited to the Reykjavik International Film Festival as a participant in the 2017 Talent Lab as a result of the short film, let's see if I can pronounce this, HNEFATAFL?
No.
Yeah. HNEFATAFL.
There you have it.
You can watch the film and follow RAM FEC at apertureforbrahma.com. That's apertureforbrahma.com, where he shares his daily insights into the alchemical process.
You should enjoy these 13 insights into Mark's wisdom. RAM FEC.
All right, so today on 13 Questions, we've got RAM FEC with us. How's it going today?
It's going great. How are you doing, Graham?
Yeah, pretty good. Excellent. So we'll just jump right into the questions. Yeah, start with the first one here. What was the best advice ever given to you, and would you modify it at all today?
Best advice I ever received was the simple statement, "I am with you always," and I would not modify that at all. It might be worth it to kind of explain some context for that advice. It was given to me by a Swami. And in this context, the I am is referring to consciousness. And so that statement, I'm with you always, reinforces that the guidance that I'm looking for as an individual is already within me, and I don't have to seek that outside. And
Nice.
that guide is always there.
Yeah. Nice. When was that?
That was last year in Toronto.
Wow. Recent.
Himalayan mystic was in Toronto, and I had the opportunity to meet with him one-on-one for a private conversation. And, it was absolutely incredible because I never in my life experienced being the object of someone's one-pointed concentration. But the opportunity to walk into the room with him, literally, my body started shaking and I started weeping. And I'm not a devotee or anything like that. There was no emotional reason for me to have that kind of reaction. It was simply because I was in the presence of somebody who was absolutely devoting their attention to me.
Wow.
And
full
that,
presence.
Full presence. And that is what enlightenment is at its very core.
Yeah.
And it was both overwhelming and devastating and beautiful all wrapped up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right on. So what was the most important lesson you learned from your parents? And this doesn't have to be like a direct lesson or an intentional lesson. It could be, anything.
That's a great point to distinguish.
Yeah.
I think my parents may have wanted to convey this lesson, but I do not think it was necessarily intentional on their part. But I would say that that most important thing I learned from them was that if you're passionate about something, dedicate yourself to it. Do whatever it takes, and be aware of the fact that sacrifice will be required for you to achieve your passion. Which was such a valuable lesson for me to learn. I mean, we only have so much time in the day. So if I want to achieve something, I have to be aware of the fact that maybe I have to part with the distraction that I'm addicted to the most. If I really want to achieve something, I have to be accountable with my time. And that is part of that essential lesson that they taught me about pursuing your goals and pursuing your passions.
Yeah, I remember you talking to me about that about a year ago or 2 years ago when you were doing, I think you were doing a practice, you were doing your master key, I think. And it seemed like you were very, at that time you were like,
absolutely.
Your time was devoted to whatever you were, like it had to be.
Absolutely.
It had to be like furthering your goal.
Absolutely.
You weren't like wasting time doing this or that. It was like, it had to be aligned with where you were going. Yeah.
Absolutely. And very much I scrutinize my time like I'm budgeting money.
Yeah.
Is okay, there's this much, this many hours in the day, and how am I going to divide that up so that I'm actually going to day by day see progress towards my ultimate end.
Yeah. Yeah. Right on. So what book was most or has been most influential on your life, and why?
As you just previously mentioned, The Master Key.
It's funny. I knew when I knew you were going to do this interview, I thought, I bet you that's the book one. The book one came to mind. And clearly you know me, and I would like to think that you've observed the influence that book has had in my life. So I'm glad and flattered that was the thing that went through your mind, because it is my hope and desire that people are inspired by my example versus the things that I might say. Yeah.
So the Master Key System by Charles Haanel, primarily because it reinforces cause and effect, and the importance of accepting personal responsibility, which therefore eliminates blaming other people for the conditions that are in our life. It also really gets to the core of determining what your predominant mental attitude is, and being aware that your predominant mental attitude determines how you perceive the conditions that are in your life. So if we focus our attention towards maintaining a predominant mental attitude that is supportive of the ideal state we want to be in, then every condition that we encounter in life, we will see through that lens. And that is an absolutely critical thing for me in the 5 years that I've been actively engaged in the Master Key system. It has changed so much, so many things in my life.
Yeah. Nice. So what daily rituals or habits do you have? And would you recommend them to others?
I would absolutely recommend mental exercise is my daily habit, specifically memory work. And that is, again, tied in with the Master Key system. I memorize different aspects, different points that he makes in the book. And what I've done personally is taken a collection of the material that he wrote and arranged it in a very easily accessible way. And I've committed those to memory, or I work on them every day. I spend time every day engaged in memorization work, because memorization work is, for me personally, I have found it to be the most effective way to replace internal dialogues that do not support my ideal state.
Yeah, you're really you're reprogramming the brain, probably, right?
Absolutely, and that is something that Hanel is constantly talking about in the Master Key system, is that we can reprogram our subconscious by replacing the amount of dialogues we have. Like going back to our metaphor of we only have so much time in the day. Well, your mind can only be thinking about so many things at once. So if you start inserting dialogues and you start giving it things to think about, then it will not have time to think about things that you don't want it to think about anymore. And that's really the strategy. And again, for me personally, memory work has been probably the most effective means of doing that, of substituting dialogues that are unhealthy.
Can you give us an example of one of them?
Sure. I mean, the world without is a reflection of the world within, and all possession is based on consciousness. Yeah. So, in other words, the world around me, the world I'm perceiving, is based on the one that I've determined already. Yeah. And the things that all of our thoughts possess us. So if I'm thinking about how terrible life is, then it's possessing me, and I'm going to interpret every condition in my life as being terrible, because that's my predominant mental attitude. Yeah. So those would be, a couple examples. Those two.
Yeah, nice. So if I was to ask your best friend, which best friends, let's say a good friend, what is the one thing they would say that you need to work on the most, and why?
They would probably say that I need to work on my social engagement. Which again, we can kind of reference back to that if you're passionate about something, dedicate your time to it. The
time thing again, yeah.
And I see great value in social engagement. But I very much moderate how much time I spend socially and who I spend that time with. Not a lot of people understand my motivation for doing that, including my best friend. So hence the answer.
Yeah, that makes sense. I go through that myself too. When I feel like I need to be more social, and then when I commit to being more social, then I just want to stay at home alone and do just read or do something on my own.
I think there's something very valuable in recognizing that honoring yourself in that way is important. Yeah. And we live in a society and a time that is so almost overbearing, in the sense of fill your time up with people and with TV shows and with this. And there's almost that your validation as a human is based on how many social activities you're involved in. As I reflect over my life, I've never really been the kind of person that cared too much about seeking validation from other people. So that's given me some advantage in this area, but at the same time, it's also alienated me from social activity to unhealthy points at different periods in my life.
Yeah, for sure.
So I've needed to learn how to recognize and find a balance, the right balance for me.
Yeah.
And part of that is engaging with the right people.
You can tell societies like that. Have you ever had people answer, like when you ask somebody how they're doing, they're like, yeah, I'm busy. Yeah, I'm good. Like busy becomes an answer of like, instead of good, they're busy.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, that equals good. Like maybe it should be the opposite.
It that is curious that obviously if somebody is answering that with busy, then they're either equating that to good or bad.
Yeah.
And they're assuming that you are going to interpret it the same way.
Yeah.
Tone of voice is huge. So that would give me some indication on whether they're implying.
Usually they're implying it's good in a way.
Exactly.
Unless
because
they say too busy, but.
Yeah. No, you're right. And that is very, I think, reflective of where we're at as a society that stresses busy. And that, that brings me to something that I should differentiate. When you're passionate about something, dedicate your time to it. But I do not consider myself busy or overwhelmed or overworked.
Yeah.
Because part of responsible pursuit of your passion is knowing when to relax and knowing when to just take time to read a book instead of doing this, or it's management. Moderation and time management is huge.
Yeah, good point. What are you most curious about?
I am most curious about alchemy, specifically the transformation of the self. You can look at alchemy symbolically of turning lead into gold, but you can take it a step deeper and look at the heart of what alchemy was, and it was self-transformation. And you see that reflected throughout history in different things like Tantra and even biohacking, which at their essence are alchemy. It's about how can I transform who I am into like an Übermensch, Nietzsche's term of the Superman. How can I become better? And that's really alchemical thought, which is at the root of Gnosticism and Hermeticism and most esoteric mysticism.
Yeah. I have to segue a little bit into something.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, because it's kind of strange. So we had a guest on our other show, the Grimerica show recently, Michael Wan, and his website and his thing is Susquehanna Alchemy, right? And he reminds me of you.
Oh, really?
And you guys have both been impacted by that knockout game. The only two guys I know
really
have been hit by the kids playing the knockout game. And he reminded, before I knew any of that, he reminded me of you.
Wow.
And we just had him on, and then I made that connection. Then you come on and say, what you're most curious about alchemy? Like, come on.
That's actually super fascinating to me, because when that happened to me, immediately I recognized that this was an opportunity to put into practice everything that I claimed to be pursuing. Self-transformation is essentially about taking a condition in life that may not seem appealing and finding a way to transform it into something that will enhance you as a person. And so clearly, with the knockout game, one day I'm standing at a bus stop, and the next thing I'm picking myself up off the ground with the broken jaw. And mentally, you have to figure out, well, why did this happen to me? And again, your predominant mental attitude: am I going to learn something from this, or am I going to feel sorry for myself and get angry or blah blah blah? So, at the heart of alchemy is the willingness to observe your situation and extract something that you can learn from it, rather than allow it to be an opportunity for the ego to come in and take over. I mean, not that the ego needs to come in, but the voice of the ego can take over the role, the predominant role.
Yeah.
So it is interesting to me that he experienced that as well, because for me, undoubtedly, it was something that allowed me to really put into practice all of the things that I was claiming.
Yeah. And the thing is, I swear he handled it very similarly. I mean, it's interesting how I don't think he didn't sound very resentful or vengeful. It was like this happened, and he seemed to deal with it the same way.
Conditions happen in life, and being able to rise above those conditions is the whole point of transformation and of enlightenment. And so sometimes concepts and ideas are theoretical until there's practical experience to integrate those ideas. Yeah. And a random assault is a great, I don't want to say it's great in itself, but it can be a vehicle for integrating those transformative concepts.
Yeah, awesome. What was the most embarrassing experience of your life?
I can't really recall actually ever being embarrassed. I mean, likely at some point in my childhood, I felt embarrassed for some petty thing that has never stuck with me enough that I could recall it. So no doubt that happened. I mean, as children, we are easily in situations where we might find ourselves embarrassed. But again, I never really cared too much about what people thought of me. So things that may have embarrassed other people, I saw it as an opportunity to kind of see how other people would. I was more interested in how other people were reacting to things than like if I felt embarrassed. Yeah. So I would say that there was probably even times I did something that intentionally other people might have felt embarrassed about, so that I could observe the reactions of other people.
Wow. Yeah. What is your greatest fear, and how do you overcome it?
My greatest fear was probably a fear of snakes that I had all throughout my childhood. And I overcame that because I had a friend who had a boa constrictor and a boa constrictor, and I asked them to put it on me. And I mean, I was terrified. As a kid, I couldn't even touch a picture of a snake. I was absolutely terrified of snakes. And so to go from not being able to touch a picture to having one slithering around on your body very quickly eliminated that fear. I think that confronting our fears is the most effective way to eliminate them. We make the monsters so much worse in our head because they're unknown. I think that there's other fears that I've had that I've confronted similarly. Like, I was never a big fan of heights, and then getting a job that required me to ride in a lift that was 100 feet in the air. Again, you very quickly get over your fear because you realize the monster was so much worse. My idea was worse. Yeah. But I don't know that there's been. I mean, if I think about it, I can start to think of a few other things that might be constituted as fears. You know, as a child. I mean, ultimately, they were all just monsters that I created in my head, and I had to either confront them or realize that there was nothing to confront.
Yeah. What quality do you most admire in a man, and why?
A man specifically, or do you mean like human, or
let's say let's say the masculine archetype, maybe, or
okay, yeah,
or
sure, authenticity. I think that honesty is the foundation of authenticity. It's really important to me not to surround myself with people that tell me what I want to hear. Otherwise, I'm going to end up like one of those contestants on a variety show that the judges are ridiculing, and that contestant is amazed and angry at the reaction of the judges because their friends always have told them, "Oh, you're so good."
Yeah.
So honesty is the bedrock of authenticity, and for me, that would be it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So who are your role models and why?
There's a few that come to my mind. Captain Oswald Bastable, Mia Haverno, and Newton McClintock. And the similarity between the three of them is that they all faced conditions that seemed overwhelming, and they discovered a greater advantage in embracing the odds that were stacked against them because they could learn something from those conditions, rather than surrendering to complaining or just feeling defeated in those situations. I very inspired, obviously, by people who overcome odds. To me, that's one of the really essential elements of alchemy and master key system, and really self-transformation in general, is being able to overcome obstacles, turn obstacles into bridges.
Mm-hmm. What institution or society or structural aspect of modern life would you change given the chance? It's a tough one because there's so many.
Yeah. Institutions, I think, are the effects of where society is at, and in that context, I would be apprehensive to change any of them because I'm not sure that society would be capable of functioning if they weren't there. And that's not to say that I agree with those systems or I personally see them as any kind of utopia for society. It's just that I think that they're essential for where society's at. Nietzsche's version of the Übermensch, again, the Superman, that could only work for an individual or society if they have the incentive and take personal responsibility for their actions, and are willing to create a personal mythology or belief system that did not rely on the defense of absolute truth. So whether it's politics or religion, those systems both encourage absolute truth, and therefore that often leads to conflict amongst people. But if you were to take that away, society currently would probably just descend into some sort of anarchy because people don't seem too motivated to think for themselves. Not really. I mean, it's easy to claim that, but if you're doing exactly what a whole tribe of people are doing, then you're not actually thinking for yourself. You're just exchanging one institution for another. So I would be apprehensive.
Yeah. So what is the most courageous thing you've ever done in your life or seen?
Let go of my support system when I recognized that support system was toxic. I feel that was the most courageous thing I've done because we need a support system. Otherwise we will crash and burn, which kind of goes back to your last question. If we're not prepared to deal with removing a crutch, then now you can't move at all. So it was very difficult for me, especially at a specific point in my life where I really had to abandon all of my support systems, because now you need new support systems, but you kind of feel like you have nothing to go on and no one to consult. But that being in that position, in turn, allowed me to either really get in touch with the self. I mean, in Jung's term, self, or the guide, or however you want to say that, the intuition, or there's the guiding force inside of each of us that often never has a chance to be heard because we are looking for answers either in belief systems or the support system of our friends or whatever. So it was courageous because if you are too stubborn or for whatever reason don't get in touch with that essential element inside of yourself, that you can quite literally go mad, as Nietzsche did at the end of his life.
What rule do you have for yourself that you never break, and why do you think that that's important?
Anything that brings me benefit must also benefit others. That absolutely is the rule that I will not break, because it is, for me, it is a natural law. It is a rule of nature. The health of the biosphere of the Earth depends on the health of all the systems within the biosphere, just like the health of the body determines on the health of all the organs. So, I believe that each person is an extension of a greater collective, and so selfishness is really the germ of dissolution, as far as I'm concerned.
What qualities should a man strive for in today's world? Kind of the same as that other one about what qualities do you admire. But
I think that developing concentration is huge. It separates the masters from the wannabes. I would add to that love unconditionally, listen without prejudice, place more value on actions than words, lead by an example rather than by force, manipulation, or intimidation. Those are the transformative type of qualities that I think that if people adopted those on a large scale, then maybe we would be ready to remove some of those institutions.
Yeah. Nice. Well, thanks. That's the main part of our 13 questions. And if people want to check out more, we're going to have some extra questions. If you go to 13questions.com and sign up, and we'll have a little chat about the process and everything afterwards. So yeah, thanks again, Ram.
Thanks so much, Graham. Appreciate it.
All right. And now for the extra questions. What would you tell your teenage self?
I would say to dedicate at least 30 minutes a day to one thing that I was passionate about, and to do that consistently. And I understand that sometimes it takes us a while to understand if we're actually passionate about something. So you could change that, say, once a month if you felt that you needed to. But applying yourself to one thing consistently for 30 minutes, every day, you learn so much about what you're capable of achieving.
Yeah, that's a good one. Would your, we were chatting a little bit on the way here, would your teenage self listen to that?
My teenage self would listen to that because it wasn't based on a regret, or it wasn't based on trying to manipulate the future.
I don't want no Hawaii. I don't want no Hawaii. No what? I don't want no Hawaii. I don't want no Hawaii. No what? I don't want no Hawaii. I don't want no Hawaii. No what? I don't want no Hawaii. I don't want no Hawaii. No what? I don't want no Hawaii. I don't want no Hawaii. No what? I don't want no Hawaii. I don't want no Hawaii. No what?
Why is one man rich and another man poor? Why we ain't satisfied? Why we gotta have more? Why Why your suicide rates on the rest so high? Why I tell you the truth but you say don't lie? Why is being a good father at an all-time low? Why is it acceptable? Yo, why? I don't know. Why she blame him and he blame her? It's useless. Ask yourself this question. Why you making excuses? Why do parents gotta bury their kids? Why we text and drive, not caring how scary it is? Why it's so hard to forgive and leave the past behind? And if you did, then that's divine. Why don't you help your brother when you see him fall? Why do we act like God don't see it all? Why do we call them black, them white, them Asians and use labels? Now that's racism.
I don't wanna why? 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 I don't wanna
Why is there innocent people locked up for life, while some people can't say nothing nice? Why do we always gotta question what all of it means? And why won't you follow your dreams? Tell me why. The night when you took my dad, why'd you let me see my grandpa cry? And tell me why. And why do you choose to hide, even though you was born to fly? And tell me why. And why don't we turn from all the hate? And why don't we learn from all mistakes? Why do I keep on wrecking these fat beats? And teachers don't make more than professional athletes? And why? And why? And why? And why? And why? And why?
I don't wanna why? I don't wanna why? I don't wanna why? I don't wanna why? I don't wanna why? I don't wanna why? I don't wanna why? I don't wanna why?
This should be considered entertainment and not therapy. We hope you benefit from our resources available at 13questionspodcast.com. Thank you for listening.